Here I'm visiting my good mate Johan in South Africa. I'm going to show you his Sprinter 4x4. I've got a standard Sprinter 4x4 back in the UK, but when Johan saw it, he thought he wants one, but they're too expensive. So here's his creation where he's building his own, and we'll just go through it, and bit by bit, very interesting project. Okay, here's his Sprinter that he bought from the scrapyard, and without an engine, just as a rolling shell, an ex-ambulance. And how much did you pay for it, Johan?
I paid 60,000 for it. I got a good price on it.
Okay, so we're looking at, that's in English money, £3,000 he paid for this. And isn't it lovely that in Africa these things don't rust? My one is rusting away, and this one hasn't got a spot of rust on it. So we'll go through the mods that he's done on it, and we'll show you what's going on. So he's modified the front subframe. This is an original subframe that comes out of a Sprinter that holds, there's the motor that he bought because it came without a motor, and that holds the motor, and in two-wheel drive form it's nowhere near as high as this. So this has got something like an 8-inch lift on it, but we'll show you what he did. He took Nissan Patrol parts, and he's put, and because the Nissan Patrol's the only vehicle that has the width. So you explain to us, Johan.
Yes, like John said, that is the main thing. This is the only vehicle with the width of it, and it was a little bit of homework to find the right size of diffs. And very interesting is really strong diff this. If you look onto the Dyna diffs in America, on the Patrol in South Africa, it's a really strong diff, and I really recommend it highly if you want to do a conversion like this.
So let's have a look in here. Okay, explain to us what you've done. Here's the diff that you've put in, and you've actually modified the standard subframe that's bolted in on 6 points, and just go through all the bits and pieces with us.
Okay, what I did is like we just explained, this is your standard subframe. I took it out completely, and then if I can show it on the outside subframe, is easier to show it. I cut the middle section out, and this is where your diff sits on a vehicle on this stage. I also cut away a little bit underneath your subframe where I can put the buckets where your core springs fits in, that it can't move around. And that's what I did. So there was a lot of measurements and to get it exactly right, and also to get your wheel that sits in the center of your mudguard. And then you just work from there, and you're working backwards, and then you're using your, then I'm also building, they call it drop boxes, where your control arms at the bottom is.
So let's have a look at those.
Where the linkage and stuff is fitting onto it.
Okay.
If you can see, there's a drop box there.
Okay, there you've welded onto the end of the subframe.
Yes.
And got your links onto there. Your trailing, what are they? Trailing arms.
The trailing arms, yes.
So we'll have a look under there. You can see how he's manufactured that. And quite an engineer is Johan. So it's not complete yet. So what else can you tell us about it?
Well,
about the job of building this thing.
If you start with a bolt like this, and especially when it's your first time build on a vehicle, there's always a lot of measurements that you must take into consideration. I start with the back diff. That was a bit easier because why that is straight normal if I can build like that.
Let's have a look at the back diff.
To fit it. And so yeah, I use the Sprinter leaf springs as a standard unit, and I just make new brackets, cut everything off the diff, cleaning it, and welding new brackets on that can fit onto the leaf springs. And also the way bar or the stabilizer bar that is on there is still the original one from the Sprinter, and so I use that also on the Sprinter. This particular diff got a limited slip at the back, that just gives us a little bit more traction when we needed it.
So that's a standard Patrol diff, which is
Standard
limited
diff.
slip.
Yes, yes.
Okay. So, and then let's have a look at what you've done. What gearbox are we running in this?
This is the standard 5-speed manual gearbox from the Patrol that I use
so
here.
Patrol gearbox
Yeah.
and
transfer case.
transfer case.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then there's also floor shift, and not any cable links on this gearbox.
Let's have a look inside at what he's done so far with the gear lever. There's the gear lever, 4-wheel drive select, high and low range. So
Yeah, there you
really neat job.
Yes, there you got your high and low range, and then your normal gear lever at your floor. This is normally where your standard Sprinter gear lever sits with the cables. This section I will use for something else, like instruments, water temperature, and necessary things for checking on your engine.
Okay, so still got to make boots and all that sort of thing to tidy this up, but you're 90% of the way. And let's just have a look at what he's done to adapt the standard 2.1 Mercedes motor, which is sitting here, to the Nissan gearbox. If you want to go through that with us quickly, Johan.
Right, okay.
So,
like it's explained, that is your 646 Mercedes-Benz Sprinter engine. One of the better motors of the Sprinters, what I used. So then what I do is I borrowing a gearbox to do the conversion on the outside. And as I took this bell housing off, and show you at the bottom there, this is your standard Patrol gearbox that is sits in the Sprinter on this stage without the bell housing. So what I do is I go and bought a Mercedes-Benz automatic bell housing that can split from your gearbox. The manual one doesn't split apart. So I measure everything up on the outside, and then I start with my measurements, and here that I built a adapter plate that fits between my gearbox and my bell housing of the engine. So I'm using a standard Mercedes-Benz bell housing where I can still use all the parts of the Merc in the inside of the bell housing. So at the back of the bell housing is Nissan, front of the bell housing is Mercedes.
okay, let's just take that off again and let's have a look at that adapter plate that you made. And just explain the difference between this and normally you'd make an adapter which goes on to the motor there, wouldn't you? But you've chosen to do it a different way.
Yes, if I can just pick up the motor a little bit, then I can explain it much better. Wait a bit, just take that.
Go.
Okay, this is the bell housing of the automatic Mercedes-Benz gearbox with the adapter plate at the back on the stage that I bolted, with a bush to line up everything from my plate to the inside of my bell housing to get everything true. So this bell housing fits straight onto the engine. As you can see here. So if I took it off, this is the adapter plate side now, not a plate between the bell housing and the engine as most of the people done. So I do the opposite way. So if I took it off, the plate is there, and if I just swing it over to the gearbox, then there it is. Fits on the gearbox, bolt it down, and then your conversion is done.
Okay. Very nice. If you guys have got any comments or anything, or want any advice to do a conversion like this yourselves, feel free to drop a comment in the comments below. Tell us as well, going on a run through this, what I'm really impressed, Jan, is that this project has not cost you a lot of money. You've got a lot of skill to build this, but all in all, how much is the project costing you so far? How much was the Nissan Patrol parts?
Okay, if we're running more or less, it wouldn't be direct right figurements, but the parts cost me about 55,000 rand. The sprinter cost me 60, so you can add up that. And then I bought a donor sprinter, a rolled one, just to get the motor. The motor.
Because this came without a motor.
Yeah, this one I bought, the one that I built now into 4x4, I bought it without the motor. And my plan was to build it into a 4x4 camper and overlander. So that wasn't on that stage not for me necessary to which motor I want to put in, because I wasn't sure. So eventually my friend said to me, but he got one of those 4x4 sprinters, why did you stay rather by the Mercedes-Benz engine for future inquiries and so on?
And so to keep the value of the vehicle. So we
also push up the value.
Yeah, we're sticking with this is using the standard Sprinter motor.
Yeah, and we know the motors, and we know how much these motors are pushing out, because that was very important to can pull this big body with the motor. So the motor and the body suits each other, and that's why I decided to looking for a motor. So I was luckily, after hunting around for motors, to find this rolled vehicle. I go and check it out, start the engine and drive it, and I was very happy. So what I did, I stripped it, take it out, take the computer, the wiring, and all the small bits and pieces out of the vehicle that I can use it in mind for the build. So that will cost me another 20,000 on that motor. But I not stopped there. What I did is I took everything out that I needed and resell the donor vehicle. So at the end of the day, I made my money 80% back. So my motor, you can say I got for free. If you can work it out like that, if you do a little bit of business and so on. So if you work it out, it's not costing so much, but if I must took my time and effort into it, but I enjoyed it all the time to doing it. I never say that it was 10 hours or 100 hours that I work on my vehicle. The main thing is I was enjoying it to build it into something else.
Okay,
so you never can add your hour labor onto a vehicle like this.
So you would say into it, with the money you've got back, about 120,000 rand so far.
Yes, if I took my cabinets and inside and all the bits and pieces, we're standing at 120 on the stage.
So guys, that's amazing. Have a look at this vehicle. Have a look at the condition of it. I'll show you the inside. We're talking about £6,000. That's what he spent to get it this far. Here's the inside. He's built cabinets. It's an ex-ambulance, so a lot of it was panelled. Put cabinets in, done a 2 single-seat conversion at the front. And this is really impressive. And one thing I really like is these fat wheels, and look at the stance of that. So guys, here's a £6,000 vehicle, which you can go and buy the German equivalent for about £150,000. So, or you do it the South African way. See you guys later.
Cheers, till next time.